Good morning, people. Titus here for part 8 of our Asteroids mini-series, and in this video, we're going to tackle creating the death event to set up our loss condition for our player. Let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, so we're going to head to our blueprints folder. We're going to open up our ship. Now, to handle a death state, there's a couple ways you can go about it. You could just simply through code hide the static mesh for the player and then disable the controller input. In fact, that's how I did it on an earlier series for a Qbert recreation that we did. But I think for this one, what we can do is the other way, which is instead of making the static mesh invisible, disabling controller input, and then teleporting it back to your spawn point, and then making it visible and giving the controller back, all in the same blueprint. What we can do is just destroy the entire blueprint, spawn a brand new one, and then just have the player possess that new pawn. Where that becomes tricky is you got to make sure you have some type of level camera, because most player pawns have the camera as one of their subcomponents. In this particular project, we don't have that. We're using a level camera, so this will actually be a little easier to do. So first things first, let's get the rock to be able to destroy us, because right now it's just bouncing off of us. The other thing I'll need to do too is the collider is a bit small, so I'm gonna have to make it a little bit wider. So I think maybe I'll do 185, and then maybe I'll do 70, and hopefully that should be good enough. If you're bouncing off the rock still, it's just because your collider isn't making contact. But with the collider selected, if you scroll down to the physics section, we have, of course, simulate physics. Below that is a simulate generate hit events. We're not going to use an overlap trigger, we're going to use a hit trigger. So to do that, we're just going to make sure we check that box. Otherwise, your hit events won't fire. And then we'll go to our code, and then with the collider selected, you can right click, add an event, choose collision, and of course we have the overlap, which is typically what we use, but we're going to try the component hit. So when something hits me, I'm going to come into a print string, and then I'm just going to call maybe hit you, something simple, and then we'll play maybe spawn emitter at location, and I'm using the starter content, so we can use maybe just the simple explosion, and then we needed a location. You can drag out the collider, get the world location under the transformation here, plug that in there, and then off this we would want to call some code in the game manager to be able to handle respawning the player, because if you destroy the actor, none of the code's got to run on this, right? Basically, as soon as you call destroy actor, anything else in this blueprint is not going to run. So we need a way to handle that. So you need a game manager, basically. So we can compile this for now. Fortunately, we set up a game manager already, so we can come into here, and we basically just need 2 pieces of code, I think, or 2 events. We can do add custom event. We can call this one maybe death, and we can add a second custom event. We can maybe call this one respawn. As we prototype this out here. So I think for the death code, we need to set a variable to control basically how frequently, because there could be instances where you destroy the player, and then maybe you don't want that code to fire. It probably won't be an issue, but you might as well just check for it. So we can add a variable called isDead. This would be more relevant if you had if you're doing it the other method, whereas you're basically just hiding the game object, but it's always good to check. So we'll call isDead, and we can come into a branch, so hold B, click into the graph, So when we call death, we're going to check is dead true. If it's true, don't do anything. If it's false, let's hold Alt, click it in, and let's set it to true. And then the next thing we want to do after we kill the player is we probably want to stop hurling rocks at the player, right? So the way we can do that is in our begin play, we created a function, set timer by function name, and that was our rock spawner. And then our rock spawner is basically every second is basically just getting a random integer and then spawning a rock at one of 4 locations and then hurling it at the player. So what we can do is we drag this back. We can right click on this, promote it to a variable, and we'll call it rock spawner reference. Plug that in over here. So now down in our code, we can drag out that reference. And then we can come into a pause timer by handle. And that'll basically stop the rocks from spawning, which is going to be necessary because we'll want to do that. We'll probably want to do that first, actually, because we want to kick that off right away. Although we'll leave it here. We'll see how it goes. There may be an issue where the rocks are trying to throw at the player and the player doesn't exist. We'll have to see if the timing's not right. We'll have to move a little bit closer so it fires quickly. Then we can come into maybe a delay. Let's maybe just do 3 seconds or something. And then we'll come into respawn. And then we can come into the respawn code into a print string. Just say respawn, make sure it's working. And then of course you can spawn actor from class. We are of course going to spawn our BP_ship. And then what you want to do is you want to right click and get a reference to the player controller. So get player controller. And then off that player controller you can say possess. And then on the in pawn, you can just feed out the return value from your spawn. So it knows to possess that there. And we can hold the is dead, hold Alt, click it in. We can set it to false because the player's been spawned. And we can hold Control, drag in our rock spawner, and then we can call unpause timer by handle. So I'll basically start the rocks up again. And now for the spawn actor by location, we don't have a transform. That's okay though, because our transform was the center of the world, so we can actually just right click and split the structure pin. It'll input 0, 0, 0, and that'll compile just fine. If you have an actual location you want to make a reference to, you can of course do that in the level blueprint and then kick it over to the game manager, like we did with the asteroids, if you wanted to spawn them somewhere else. Alright, so with this all set, we need to go back into the ship, and if you remember, when we get hit, we're going to print hit you, we're going to spawn an explosion, and then we're going to destroy the actor. What we need to do is we need to call the function death from the game manager. The way we do that is we can just simply hold Control, drag in our game manager reference that we got in an earlier video. I believe that was on our begin play somewhere down here. Yeah, on our begin play, we promoted that to a variable. So we have that as a reference that we can steal up here. And then from that reference, we can just call our death function that we created in the game manager. Plug that into here. So So when we get hit, we do a print string, we spawn an explosion, we call a function on the game manager, and then we destroy the ship. The game manager is going to run, it's going to check, are we dead? If we're dead, we're going to do nothing. If we're not dead, we're going to set is dead to true. We're going to pause the rocks from being spawned. We're going to wait 3 seconds, and then we're going to respawn. And then when respawn's called, it's going to print a string. It's going to spawn the ship. It's going to possess the ship to the player controller 0, which is player 1. It's going to set is dead to be false, and it's going to start the rock spawner up again. So if we hit play, you can kind of see how this works here. See a couple attacks being, so there's the explosion, I can't move, 3 seconds, I'm back in the game, and that seems to be working okay. Now one thing you may want to do is you may want to clear the screen, because maybe the screen will get a little too busy and you're going to spawn into death, which may not be fun. There's a few ways you can tackle that problem. You can do like a box collider and check if there's anything there before spawning, and if it is, you just maybe loop it back and wait. Another way you can handle it is we can just simply clear the screen, which is, I guess, easy enough. On the functions tab, we'll create a new function. We'll just call it maybe clear screen. This will be in the game manager, of course, and then we'll come into get all actors of class. And we'll search for VP Asteroid. And pull off the array into a for each loop. So it iterates through all the items on the screen, and then we can call some function there. So let's set up a function. So let's open our asteroid, and we handled death a few different ways on the asteroid. We handled in the laser code. We can't really use that one because we're incrementing the score, so we don't want to increase the score when we clear the screen. We also do it on the begin play when we create a timer where the rock just dies after 30 seconds, so it doesn't sit on the screen forever. That's not going to really work very well for us either. I think we'll just create a new custom event, just make it easy. So we'll do add custom event, and then maybe we'll just call it destroy or clear screen, or whatever you want to call it. And then we can basically say destroy actor, but before that, let's actually play our special effect that we made in an earlier video. I think it was this one here. So these 3 nodes. So we can right click, copy. This is just spawning that Niagara system we made in the earlier video. We might as well do that here too. So we'll play that Niagara system, and then we'll just come into destroy actor, and then on the game manager we need to figure out where to call that. So off the array element we can call destroy, and there's our destroy function. So this function is pretty much set up, so we can compile and save. And then in the event graph, I think maybe after death, I think we'll do it before we respawn. We'll call clear screen. Basically destroys all the asteroids on the screen, and then it respawns the player. That way the player won't get destroyed when spawned. So if we did that right, let's get a few rocks on the screen here. There's the attacks, they're coming in. So I got destroy, we got some rocks on, they should blow up, and then we're cooking with gas. Alright, people, I think we'll cut it here to keep it short, but in the next video, we'll update our HUD widget to add lives so we can set up our game over condition for the player. As always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.